I think that's kind of one of the areas where Kamala Harris failed. There was just so much focus on Donald Trump being compared to Hitler, and for women's issue only really focusing on abortion. I just don't think that was enough.
No, and this is actually very interesting. If you go to Real Clear Politics, favorability, or actually if you look at their polling averages for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's numbers started to dip on October 23rd. So the dip that she experienced before the election really starts on October 23rd. On October 22nd, The Atlantic magazine dropped this, what they thought was a bombshell report about how Donald Trump was looking for generals that were like Hitler's generals. Not only did that dominate the media narrative for the next couple of days, but Democrats running the Harris campaign latched onto it. They even projected it onto Madison Square Garden ahead of Donald Trump's rally there. It became a talking point, and Kamala Harris's her polling average never recovered actually from that. And nobody's really made that connection. I'm not saying it's exactly the same correlation, but I do think it's an indication that Democrats, after they got that story and started sending Liz Cheney around to swing states and calling Donald Trump a fascist and comparing him to Hitler, that really distracted them from their economic message. And their economic message is honestly not great if you're someone in a state and you're still not feeling good about the economy. But they should have at least been trying to have that conversation instead of resorting to the fascism and the Hitler attacks.
Absolutely. I think it did them no favors, and people can really see through those attacks. So what does the future hold for the Democrats? What's next?
I'm so curious about this because they can either do what they did in 2016, which is double down on the cope. So they could double down on blaming Russia and blaming sexism. And we are already seeing that from some corners of the party and of the media. On the other hand, this has now happened twice. Media favorability or media trust is tied for the all-time low that it hit in 2017 after the 2016 election. The business is a real problem for places obviously like the Washington Post, where we've seen Jeff Bezos all but beg his employees to let him run a business and to let him go back to journalistic practices before the modern era. So they can do one of two things. They can totally double down, or they can learn lessons. And right now I'm not seeing a lot of signs that they're actually willing to say, we need to persuade people and regain their trust. They're pointing fingers. And again, it's early, but the indications are not good.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Look, we're also going to see RFK Jr. have a role in Trump's team, particularly to do with health. How significant is this?
This is huge. Now, what he wants to do is going to take an enormous amount of just manpower, political will to accomplish. So even with 4 years, what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants to accomplish at, for example, the FDA, is going to take a lot. I just don't think there's too much you can do. It's sort of like trying to turn the Titanic around in terms of what his goals are. That said, there are executive actions, there are regulations that can be rolled back, there are regulations that can be enacted. He'll be really hard for Trump to confirm to a Senate confirmed position, so like a cabinet secretary or something like that. But it's possible that he can serve as sort of a czar, a shadow advisor who's heavily influencing whoever is in charge of the FDA or the Department of like DHS, these health organizations, or HHS, I should say, Health and Human Services. So he can play a really significant role. Will it be as dramatic as people on the left are claiming? I don't think so. It's just, you just don't even have enough time when you have a 4-year term.
What about the MAGA movement? You mentioned time. Obviously, Trump's only got 4 more years, but he really has created this MAGA movement that I think will carry through.
This is the thing that Republicans have to figure out right now is Donald Trump is making these gains in states like Maryland and New Jersey that contributed to his ability to win the popular vote. Similarly, he got people who didn't turn out in the midterm elections, low propensity voters, people who are not reliable in terms of their turnout, to actually come and vote on election day. Can other Republicans do that? Can they do that with Hispanic men? Can they do that with young men? I don't know. I think it's a huge question because Trump is so singular. He's the guy who has Dana White and Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. And, while on paper, Elon Musk might want to support J.D. Vance or Tom Cotton or some other senator, Having him actually go out and do as much as he did for Donald Trump and to rally the momentum in the public and in popular culture, I feel like that's really what ultimately swept all of these low propensity voters to the polls. So whether that can be repeated without Trump on the ballot, Republicans now need to figure out how they can do that, if they can do that.
Absolutely. Emily Jashinsky, so great to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thank you. Appreciate it.